contest after his 10 years of service in the military to help inspire soldiers and veterans coping with injuries.
Invictus was inspired by the experiences I had alongside our servicemen and women from many nations.
Meghan and Harry's motorcade.
Legitimate project that Prince Harry has, the Invictus Games, the only thing that from start to finish is considered a success that people admire.
On stage, opening the same games where 5 years ago they announced their relationship.
Please welcome my incredible husband, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
It was supposed to be Prince Harry's crown jewel, a legacy built not on bloodlines or royal traditions, but on purpose, sacrifice, and healing. The Invictus Games, born from the ashes of war, celebrated across continents, and for nearly a decade, seen as the one thing Harry got right, until now. Because behind the standing ovations, the staged Netflix smiles, and the service's universal speeches, there's a storm brewing. One with a $30 million price tag, allegations of financial misconduct, whistleblowers fired, veterans betrayed, and a royal couple accused of turning a sacred charity into their personal playground. This isn't just bad press. This could be the scandal that topples the Sussex empire, piece by carefully curated piece. So the real question is, was the Invictus Games ever about the veterans, or was it always about Harry and Meghan? Let's get into it.
In the news this week, and it has been quite eventful. What's the latest?
Of empowerment and showcasing their unity.
When I talk to my son Archie about what he wants to be when he grows up, some days it's an astronaut, other days it's a pilot. But what I remind him is that no matter what you...
Before the headlines, before the Netflix deals, before Meghan, there was just Harry, the soldier, the prince who walked behind his mother's casket, then chose the front lines of Afghanistan over the safety of a palace. And from that trauma came purpose. In 2014, he founded the Invictus Games, a global sporting event for wounded, injured, and sick service members. It wasn't just a tournament. It was therapy, a lifeline for veterans drowning in silence and struggle. It gave hope, dignity, a second chance. And for Harry, it gave something else, a mission. It was the one thing that silenced his critics, the one royal initiative no one could mock. Even his harshest detractors admitted he nailed it.
When you grow up, it's your character that matters most. And nothing would make his mum and me prouder than to see him have the character of what we see before us today. You as a community.
For nearly a decade, the Invictus Games stood untouched, pure, noble, a symbol of what Harry could be when he wasn't at war with his own family. But nothing gold stays, because while Harry may have created something beautiful, what came next would fracture it, possibly beyond repair. And it all started with a $40 million promise.
But also highly competitive internationally.
Yes, of course, highly competitive, but for those of people who are asking what was that all about, there was no one else that I can think of that was going to top.
He then parried with another statement thanking him for all his service. Dominic Reed is a former soldier, so this is something that's very close to his heart. And he really
When the city of Düsseldorf was selected to host the 2023 Invictus Games, it was supposed to be a historic moment. Germany went all in, pledging over $40 million in public funds to create a world-class event. Stadiums were reserved, accommodations secured, press lined up. The goal? Honor veterans, inspire nations, elevate the games to new heights. But instead of triumph, Germany got trouble, because now over $30 million of that taxpayer money is being dragged into the spotlight. Legal investigations have launched. Whistleblowers are speaking out, and what was once hailed as Harry's most honorable achievement is now being picked apart line by line in audit reports. Where did the money go? Insiders are describing the situation as financial chaos, a disaster hidden under layers of red tape, personal perks, and questionable executive decisions. And at the center of it all, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the very people who once stood for service, are now accused of turning a charity into a luxury brand campaign. But this isn't just a budgeting issue. This is the moment everything starts to unravel. Because once the numbers started leaking, the luxury began to look suspiciously familiar. And that's when the Sussex spending spree came to light.
Have overcome immense challenges, and together you are healing and teaching the world as you go.
As investigators dug deeper into the Düsseldorf disaster, one line item stopped everyone in their tracks. $10 million, nearly a quarter of the entire Invictus Games budget, vanished into what insiders are now calling a royal luxury package. That's right. While wounded veterans were scrambling for basic gear, training on outdated equipment, and sharing cramped accommodations, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were allegedly enjoying five-star hotels, convoys of black SUVs, elite private security, and first-class flights. The numbers are damning. Out of a $40 million budget, just 3%, roughly $1.2 million reportedly went toward athlete services and equipment. Meanwhile, an eye-watering $10 million funded the Sussexes' lifestyle during the games. Sources say these expenses weren't just incidental. They were personal requests, allegedly approved to satisfy Harry and Meghan's inner circle. Requests that included VIP amenities, custom accommodations, even personal glam squads for Meghan.
Well, let's talk about the Invictus Games, because this originated in a momentary light bulb moment you had, as it were, in a plane coming back from Afghanistan during your first tour.
And while the Sussexes haven't responded publicly, the optics are brutal. Veterans sleeping two to a room, while Meghan reportedly demanded luxury suites with designer amenities. Athletes asking for support gear, while Harry rode through the city in a protected motorcade. Insiders describe it as a king's ransom spent on self-promotion. And now the backlash is exploding. Not just from taxpayers or donors, but from the very community the games were built to serve. Because while Invictus was supposed to uplift broken heroes, it's now being framed as a red carpet backdrop for two royals desperate to prove their relevance. And it's only getting uglier. Because when two key insiders started asking questions about this spending, they didn't get answers. They got fired.
Games from where it was to where it is now. The curious thing is the fact that he didn't stay to see through the Winter Games, which was actually his idea, and which was the reason why you saw Prince Harry.
If there's one thing powerful people fear, it's paper trails. And according to sources inside the Invictus Games Foundation, two senior executives decided to follow them. That's when everything changed. These weren't interns or outside consultants. They were seasoned insiders, longtime loyalists who helped build the Invictus brand from the ground up. But once they started asking uncomfortable questions about the ballooning expenses, they were out. No explanation, no warning, just gone. One source close to the foundation called it a cleanup job, allegedly designed to protect Harry and Meghan from the fallout. Another insider claimed the firings weren't just suspicious, they were strategic. Once they sniffed around the wrong receipts, the source said, they were tossed like yesterday's press release. But the real bombshell? These insiders didn't go quietly. Word on the street is that at least one of them kept everything. Emails, invoices, budget breakdowns, literal receipts. And now behind the scenes, they're preparing to release it all. We're talking about expenses for five-star hotel stays, private jets, fleets of blacked-out SUVs, even personal glam squads, allegedly all billed to a charity built for veterans. And the more the foundation tried to bury it, the louder it got. Former staffers are whispering about intimidation tactics, surveillance paranoia, and a workplace where mentioning the firings could get you sidelined. Now, instead of protecting the games, the firings have blown the scandal wide open, because when you silence the truth tends to scream back even louder, and the veterans, they heard it, and they were livid.
As an officer, I'd been training for 3 years, training with a select group of guys. We were a tight-knit team. I'd already been told I wasn't allowed to go to Iraq, but I was allowed to go to Afghanistan. Let's not get in.
If the Invictus Games had one unshakable foundation, it was trust. Wounded soldiers from around the world believed in it. Donors opened their wallets. Supporters rallied behind Harry's cause, proud to stand beside something that finally felt pure in the royal circus. Now, that trust is in flames. As the scandal unfolded, veterans began speaking out, some publicly, others anonymously, but all with the same message: they felt used. One former competitor called the games a PR masquerade, claiming athletes were reduced to props while Harry and Meghan soaked up the spotlight. Another veteran who trained for months said they were barely acknowledged at key events, pushed out of frame so Netflix cameras could capture Meghan's wardrobe changes and Harry's rehearsed speeches. Let that sink in. These men and women shed blood in war zones. They came to Invictus to heal, and instead, they were allegedly upstaged by a reality show fever dream. And it's not just veterans. Major donors are furious. Many of them contributed under the belief their money would go toward adaptive equipment, coaching, housing, and rehab services. Instead, they're learning that millions went to luxury perks, designer aesthetics, and what looks more like a branded campaign for the Sussexes than a support system for heroes. Some donors are reportedly pulling out, demanding refunds, and asking for public audits. Sponsors are reevaluating their contracts, and those who once praised Harry for walking in his mother's footsteps are now wondering if they've been fooled. Because when the very people who gave everything are treated like extras in their own story, the backlash is never quiet, it roars. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, another player enters the scandal, Netflix. And what they allegedly did behind the scenes might be the most damning part yet.
And as to whether this had anything to do with the former CEO's decision to step down, but so far we haven't seen any indication of that. I think he just thinks it's his time, and I suspect there are more personal reasons.
Behind the scenes of the 2023 Invictus Games, another force was quietly pulling strings, Netflix. What was supposed to be a raw, heartfelt event for wounded warriors allegedly became a Hollywood production, complete with camera crews, shot lists, and retakes. Yes, you heard that right, retakes, at a charity event. Multiple insiders claim Netflix practically hijacked the games, reshaping the event around Harry and Meghan's narrative. Athletes who trained for months reportedly got pushed aside so producers could capture the right angles of Harry's speeches and Meghan's walk-ins. Camera teams were said to follow the couple like a red carpet entourage, every hug, every smile, every candid moment meticulously choreographed. And Meghan? According to insiders, she wasn't just a royal plus one. She was the unofficial executive producer. Reports allege she demanded her personal glam team be flown in, and that their accommodations, stylists, and products were all billed through the foundation. This wasn't just a couple supporting a cause. This was brand Sussex in full swing, treating the Invictus Games like a content mine for their $100 million Netflix deal. Staffers say the stage design, the lighting, even the flow of the event had Meghan's fingerprints all over it. She allegedly used the games to promote private projects, push curated narratives, and gather exclusive footage for upcoming media ventures. Meanwhile, actual veterans, the very soul of the games, were reportedly sidelined, cut out of major scenes, omitted from press events, ignored in favor of glamour shots and media ops. One furious staffer didn't hold back. This wasn't the Invictus Games, it was the Harry and Meghan show sponsored by Netflix. And the world started noticing. Because when Meghan's designer heels got more screen time than a double amputee's comeback story, the mask started to slip. And that's when legal experts began circling.
The training had been done, we gelled together, and I was out there with the guys. And to be taken away from your team, not knowing what was going to happen.
Once the receipts started leaking, the media frenzy became impossible to contain. But behind the tabloid noise, something far more dangerous was brewing: legal heat. Düsseldorf officials were the first to raise the alarm. They'd approved $30 million in taxpayer funds, believing it would go toward honoring veterans, not funding private jet rides and luxury hotel suites. Now they want answers, and they're not waiting quietly. City council members have called the scandal a breach of public trust, and insiders confirm that formal investigations are underway. Every transaction, every vendor contract, every reimbursed meal and transport invoice is being pulled apart line by line. And they're not alone. Legal experts across Europe and the US are sounding the alarm. Because if charity funds were mixed with Netflix production budgets or used for personal perks, that's not just unethical, it could be criminal. We're talking fraud, embezzlement, and misappropriation of public funds. And the Archwell Foundation? If even a fraction of these claims stick, it could lose its charitable status in both the UK and the US. Donations would dry up, government partnerships would vanish. The brand, already hanging by a thread, would collapse almost overnight. Sources say Don Lindsay, the Invictus Games Foundation chairman, is done playing nice. He's reportedly pushing for full transparency, even if it means cutting off the head of the beast. Translation: if Harry or Meghan are involved, they're not untouchable anymore. Behind closed doors, lawyers are scrambling, tax authorities are reviewing records, and whispers of civil lawsuits and criminal charges are starting to echo through royal circles. Because if this wasn't just bad optics, if this was a coordinated misuse of funds, then the Invictus scandal isn't a firestorm. It's a nuclear event, and it's already hit Buckingham Palace like a shockwave. As the scandal scorched headlines across continents, royal watchers turned their gaze toward Buckingham Palace. Would the monarchy step in, defend Harry, offer a statement? What they got instead was silence. But in royal circles, silence can speak volumes. According to palace insiders, both King Charles and Prince William have chosen to distance themselves completely from the Invictus disaster. No public support, no private lifelines, just cold, calculated disengagement. One senior royal aide reportedly described it as an unspoken severing of ties. Another went further, calling the Invictus mess a ticking time bomb we refuse to sit next to. Behind the palace gates, damage control isn't on the table. They're cutting the cord. What was once a proud royal initiative, something William and Harry stood behind together, has now become a PR landmine, and no one wants their name near it. Royal patronage for the games? Quietly pulled. Invitations to future Invictus events? Rescinded. Support from the royal family's charitable arm? Vanished. This isn't just a cold shoulder. It's a strategic royal exile, the final nail in a relationship already hanging by a thread. Even the Queen's advisors are said to be furious, not necessarily over the scandal itself, but over the brand damage. Because while the Sussexes may be independent now, their controversies still leave a stain on the crown. And for a family clinging to tradition, stability, and public favor, that stain is unacceptable. Harry and Meghan once believed Invictus could be their shield, proof they still stood for something meaningful. But if this investigation goes where it's headed, that shield won't just crack, it will shatter. And the royals? They'll be watching from a safe distance as the fallout continues.
Petition founded by the prince himself, and it's clear they've been missed. The pair couldn't resist also hitching a ride with these youngsters. Their presence here is welcomed not only by visitors.
For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle built their post-royal identity on two pillars, philanthropy and purpose. When they left the monarchy, they didn't just walk away from royal duties, they promised to build something better, something global, honest, grounded in service. But now that promise is hanging by a thread. Because if the allegations around the Invictus Games are true, if money meant for wounded veterans was rerouted into luxury perks, Netflix content, and glam squads, then brand Sussex isn't just struggling, it's collapsing. Legal analysts say the most immediate threat is to the Archewell Foundation. If evidence confirms financial misconduct, the foundation could lose its nonprofit status in both the UK and the US. Tax exemptions? Gone. Donations? Dried up. Corporate partnerships? Cancelled. And once Archewell falls, it sets off a chain reaction. Netflix, already reportedly growing restless with the couple's PR baggage, may terminate their multi-million-dollar deal. Spotify already did. Other brands are likely watching closely, waiting to see if this controversy explodes into indictments or lawsuits. But worse than the corporate fallout is the public betrayal. Because it wasn't just money that built brand Sussex, it was trust. The belief that Harry and Meghan genuinely wanted to use their fame for good. That they were different, authentic, selfless. Now that image is melting under the heat of scandal, and no PR agency can polish it back into place. Whistleblowers are preparing to go public. Veterans are speaking out. Donors are demanding audits. And the world is asking one brutal question. Was it ever about the cause, or was it always about the cameras? Because if the Sussexes really did turn a sanctuary for wounded warriors into a photo op, they may never recover from it. The Invictus Games were supposed to be untouchable, a sacred project. A rare moment when Prince Harry stood tall, not as a rebel, not as a royal outcast, but as a leader with purpose. Now that legacy is in ruins. What began as a mission to uplift wounded warriors has spiraled into a full-blown crisis, one steeped in luxury spending, executive firings, whistleblower threats, and mounting legal fire. Insiders say the receipts are coming. Emails, contracts, budgets, hard evidence that could turn a PR disaster into a courtroom showdown. And if that happens, this won't just be a scandal. It'll be the end of everything Harry and Meghan have spent the last 5 years trying to build. Because here's the brutal truth. You can criticize the monarchy. You can walk away from your titles. You can even trade tradition for fame. But the second you're seen as using wounded veterans for Netflix content and personal perks, you lose the last piece of public sympathy. And that's exactly what's slipping through Harry's fingers. Sponsors are walking. Veterans are turning. The palace has gone dark. And Meghan, once heralded as a modern voice for change, is now being cast as the woman who turned a battlefield into a brand strategy. So, can Harry survive this? That depends. If the allegations crumble, they'll spin it as a media hit job, maybe even rebound stronger. But if even half of it is true, if even a fraction of those funds were funneled into vanity instead of veterans, then this isn't just the collapse of a foundation. It's the death of the Sussex narrative. The clock is ticking. The press is circling, and for the prince who once walked beside heroes, he may now stand alone. If you think this scandal is just getting started, hit that like button to let us know you're watching. Got an opinion on the Sussex fallout? Drop a comment, we're reading every single one. And if you want the full truth as this story explodes, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because next time, we might be breaking down the receipts that could bury brand Sussex for good.